Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. There is a phenomena of filing multiple FIRs in various states for the same offense against accused. And this happens as part of a strategy many times, which is used or the law is misused to trouble any person. And what are the Supreme Court observations on such an act, which is what we're going to discuss today? And is there any way out? I have a very eminent panel with me today on the show. May I welcome Justice Iqbal Ahmed Ansari, sir, has served as the Chief Justice of the Patna High Court. Good to see you again, sir, on the show. I have with me Samarjeet Patnaik, he's senior partner with Karanjawala and Company, one of India's leading litigation law firms. Good to see you, Mr. Patnaik. Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari joins us from Delhi once again. Last time, I think he was on the show, he was in London, but he's back in town. Good to see you, Mr. Bhandari, and looking forward to some interesting interventions from you. And at the outset, let me request Mr. Patnaik that in about the next 2-3 minutes, if he can lay the ground for the show before we move on. Mr. Patnaik, over to you.
Thank you, Tarun, for inviting me to the show. Good evening, everyone. Today's topic is an interesting topic, Tarun, as you mentioned. It's a very current topic, I would say, in the sense that recently we've been hearing about multiple instances, cases where this issue of multiple FIRs, subsequent FIRs, complaints, etc., on the same cause of action has been filed. It's not only a phenomenon which happens pan-India on the same issue which has happened in one city, but it could be also in multiple cities within a state, and at times even at various police stations within a city. Interestingly, this phenomenon has increased recently, and I would say all of us in the legal fraternity are aware that the law on this is quite settled, though. And interestingly, even though the law on this is quite settled, we keep hearing about these instances time and again. Law on this was settled long back in, I would not say long and as much, but in 2001, in the famous case of TT Antony versus State of Kerala, where this aspect was dealt with, discussed in detail, and it was held that multiple FIRs, second FIR, subsequent FIRs on the same cause of action is not maintainable. Not maintainable owing to the fact that it would amount to a abuse of the process of law, and the basis on which this judgment was passed was in order to see that there is a balance between the fundamental rights of the citizen or of the accused, the citizen of the country, whose fundamental rights are to be protected and balanced with the large amount of investigating powers that has been given in the hands of an investigating agency. I'll quote a paragraph from the famous judgment, and it clearly, it's very beautifully worded, and it says that there can be no second FIR where the information concerns the same cognizable offense alleged in the first FIR or the same occurrence or incident which gives rise to one or more cognizable offenses. This is due to the fact that the investigation covers within its ambit not just the alleged cognizable offense, but also any other connected offenses that may be found to have been committed. Now, the basis of this is, now one would argue that people at different places may be affected and they go to a police station to file a complaint and get an FIR registered. What happens to those complaints or statements? Now, there is a provision under the CRPC. Once the FIR is registered in pursuant to section 154 of the CRPC, any further statements, any further information, while the same cognizable offense, same incident, can easily be accommodated and be part of the same FIR and same investigation in terms of section 162 of the CRPC. So all that the investigating agency needs to do is to take all these statements, make part of it, and then file whatever final report they have to file.
Okay.
And now this is the fundamental law and the rule that the ruling has provided. And recently, there are a lot of other judgments that have relied upon these on TT Anthony. The few primarily being the case of Arnav Goswami and many other, because reporters are being charged with a lot of multiple FIRs in recent times.
That's a point of it. Because I go to Abhimanyu Bhandari. Now, this issue, Mr. Bhandari, of filing multiple FIRs has been misused in the case of businessmen, in the case of media. I'll go to Justice Ansari at this point. Justice Ansari, your input on this issue.
As Mr. Patnaik has correctly pointed out, the query which you have put is fairly covered by the case of TT Anthony.
Okay.
There can be two kinds of FIR. One is that against an individual, there are several FIRs, not necessarily based on the same cause of action. There, the law which he states will not apply. But where there are FIRs lodged on the basis of the same cause of action, then in that event, the FIR, which is the first in point of time and which commences the investigation, that will be the first information report. And subsequently, any FIR lodged or any statement made will be regarded as a statement made to the police during investigation under section 161, read with section 162. So that is what it is. In that event, it will be only for the police officer who is investigating the case to file it where the FIR was first registered. But then it leads to a lot of harassment in the sense that, genuinely speaking, the police officer may not be knowing where is the case first registered. That will be very tumultuous task.
Okay.
In any case, it will be the responsibility of the government to ensure that against a person, not more than one FIR is treated as a victim.
It's a responsibility of the government to ensure that not more than one FIR is filed. I'll go to Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari at this point. Comparing to what Justice Ansari said, I want to ask you, if somebody deploys this as a strategy to harass somebody, don't you think that this is very dangerous in terms of using it as a tool? Politicians, media, any eminent personality can be harassed because there is no way that the police inspector will know whether any FIR in the same matter has been filed elsewhere in the country. How do you look at this problem that we face as a society today?
Yes. So Tarun, this is a huge issue. And there is one thing I'm going to differ. I agree totally with Samarjit, but there's one aspect I'm going to differ with. In the opening, he says that the law is very settled since 2001. Let me tell you, my personal opinion is that the law is anything but settled on this issue. And I'll explain you how. You are looking at it from a very simple way. You are looking at, let's say, for example, Tarun, one of journalists has made a tweet. That tweet is defamatory. That tweet is obnoxious. So what you see is a number of FIRs in various parts of the country. As Samarjit rightly said, you might see a number of FIRs in the same police station in one city. That you're seeing it from that aspect. And TT Anthony comes to the rescue of everyone because TT Anthony says you cannot do something like that. But Tarun, I'm going to look at it from a little different perspective. And this is a perspective which the courts are grappled with. We are seeing a situation where large companies, whether they are real estate builders, whether they are sophisticated funds, they take money from public, right? So let's take the example of a very big builder. He takes money from, he wants to build a particular tower in Noida with, let's say, 200 flats. Now he sells those flats in that tower to various people across the country.
Yes.
People like me from Calcutta, people like you from Delhi, people like Justice Ansari from other parts of India. Now, what happens if that project is not completed? Can every home buyer go to his local police station in every part of the city and file an FIR that, look, this builder has not done it, he's cheated us? So for the same tower, the builder can be prosecuted in various parts of the country, when really it's all one tower and one company which is supposed to make that tower and hand over. Now, this case is a little different from the cases that you have discussed, Tarun, because you've discussed a case of a mere journalist or someone who is identically, who's made that same tweet. Here, there is a huge conflict in law, because some people say, oh, every investor has a right to prosecute the builder because he has invested his hard-earned money. But Tarun, I don't see it that way. If it is not whether every investor has a right to prosecute that builder, the prosecution has to be for the total failure to complete that building. So there should be one FIR, right? There cannot be multiple FIRs. Now here, TT Anthony really doesn't come to the rescue of any of us, because the judgments of TT Anthony and those that follow TT Anthony don't contemplate a situation like this. Or for example, take a big fund which has 1,000 investors. Now, if that fund has gone bust, can each of those investors all around the country file an FIR? So you're left that the businessman should, even if he's innocent, and let's say it's a genuine business loss, he has to run to every city and every country to do it. So the law is very unsettled in this. Now, what happens in Delhi, and I'll give you my Delhi perspective being a lawyer in Delhi. What the Delhi police does is, it takes that a mother FIR and others who file a complaint, they make them witnesses in that FIR. So that at least solves the problem, the local problem. But here also, there is a judgment of Delhi High Court, and if I'm not mistaken, it is Khimji Bhai Jadeja, which says this action of the police to take it as one FIR and then club other complainants into that FIR as witnesses is not correct and should not be done. This issue is now, of course, pending in the Supreme Court. And if I'm not mistaken, orders on this issue of law is reserved. So we have to see what Supreme Court is going to do, because I think that is going to be a huge landmark decision, which will decide what can be done in such cases. We are talking about one city, that if there is a FIR and there is a significant investigation, let's say done by Delhi police, then why should other states get involved and start filing similar FIRs for the same project? I can understand that for another project or for another company you can, but for same thing, you can't have multiple investigating agencies, because then that is not going to be in the interest of anybody. It's not only in the interest of the builder, but or the company. It's not also in the interest of the victims, because the victims may get contradictory decisions from different courts. So it is important that there should be one forum, one agency, which should have one FIR, which should investigate this whole thing. Now, let me tell you, Tarun, if I have a minute to 2 minutes, I don't know, but there have been 2 recent cases in the Supreme Court which has dealt with this. One of those cases I had the good fortune to appear in, where my client, every time he came out on bail in some one FIR, he got arrested by some other investor on the same FIR. So every time he got bail, he used to come out, police used to arrest him again. So there were at a time 50 FIRs, 40 FIRs for the same building. So Supreme Court came to the rescue, and it's a very interesting judgment. One should read it, Satinder Basin versus, I think, UP police, where Supreme Court came in and eventually clubbed all those FIRs into one FIR and said charge sheet files in all those FIRs are clubbed into one FIR. I think that's the right approach to take. It's a landmark decision. And that's one of those few decisions which you see, which deals with issues that companies are facing, that investors are facing. Now, this whole large issue, I think, is pending in this issue of Khimji Bhai Jadeja. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see the position Supreme Court takes, because according to me, for one project, you can't have multiple FIRs. Yes, every investor is entitled to his money back, and he can go to any forum to get his money back. But as far as criminal prosecution is concerned for that, it should be one forum.
You brought in an interesting aspect, because I think this would affect thousands of businessmen all over India if used by affected parties. You pointed out 2 things: builder or an investment house which is accepting public money from many investors pan-India. I'll go to Samarjit Patnaik. Mr. Patnaik, any remedy that you see for the problem that we are facing? If the remedy is to go to all the way to the Supreme Court every time this happens, then it's very difficult to get a hearing in the Supreme Court. It may be possible for high-profile lawyers, they have in a sense an audience. but many cases take some time to be listed before the Supreme Court. What do you think is the solution to this problem we face today?
I think the instance that Mr. Abhimanyu gave, I'm quite familiar with what he says and what is intended, because I think as lawyers, we've all been on both sides of it. So we've been lawyers for home buyers, we've been lawyers for developers, and more often than less, when we are on this side for the home buyers, we also use the same ploy of getting FIRs registered either where the project is located or where the money was given. It could be a different city altogether where the money was handed over, the agreement was signed, and actually where the project is being constructed, and or where the complainant resides, and some part of the offense we try to make out of his residential jurisdiction. So that is a practical problem. And if you are on this side where you are appearing on behalf of the developer, of course it becomes a big issue. And a similar situation which Abhimanyu mentioned, we were for the home buyers, and every time the developer, the director of the developer was being arrested in one set of FIRs, which was in Delhi, say for example, he was still not released in the FIR which was with EOW Gurgaon, and EOW Noida, because they were all connected, the FIRs in a way. So this gentleman, the accused, when we opposed his bail in Chandigarh High Court, he moved, and initially he mentioned the fact, he filed a writ, and he got a direction that the Gurgaon EOW and the Delhi police should coordinate, see what are the FIRs and who are the complainants who are common. Because at times, what also interestingly happens, the same set of complainants, Delhi NCR being close in proximity, the same set of complainants have filed one set of complaints on which FIR has been registered in Delhi EOW, and they are also common in Gurgaon EOW. So that's another problem which happens. I mean, even the EOW in Delhi and Gurgaon hardly understand that or get to know that there are out of 50, 20, 100 complainants, there are some or many complainants who are common. So I think that is a very practical issue. And you rightly mentioned that for everything, everyone cannot run to the Supreme Court, file a 32 petition to get these transfers done. But I think certainly if it is for the accused, if the accused realizes that there are 2 sets or 3 sets of FIRs which have been registered against him within the same state, he can either then as well move to the High Court under a similar relief under 226, 227 of the Constitution, and transfer can happen. But yes, that is still a practical difficulty and practical issue. And I agree that the matter which Abhimanyu mentioned, which is pending before the Supreme Court, I think we are all waiting for the outcome, and we're hopeful that some way out will come out of that judgment at least.
Thanks for making that point. I'll go across to Justice Ansari. Sir, at this point, do you think High Court can or is empowered to transfer various FIRs to its own state? For example, can a High Court in Delhi say that if there are multiple FIRs in the same offense, let all FIRs be transferred to Delhi? Or do you think only the Supreme Court of India is empowered to do so? And if that is so, then the common litigant will have a problem. Or even, given that it takes time for a case to list before the Supreme Court, he would have at least to go to 5-6 states, appear before the police, even before the Supreme Court hears such a matter. Do you think this is the dilemma we are facing here? Because it is also a problem, as Mr. Abhimanyu Bhandari shared with us, that a businessman, instead of solving the problem, will just waste his time going to various states and appearing wherever the FIR is registered. Over to you, sir.
Actually, Tarun, the difficulty which is being pointed out by you and my co-panelists is a defect in law And it is high time the legislature needs to pay some attention to this aspect of the law. As far as the High Court is concerned, it cannot club cases from other states to its own state, to any police station in its own state. And that can be done by the Supreme Court, but not by a High Court. I don't think it will be feasible.
It can't be feasible. Justice Ansari is saying the High Court does not have powers to do so. I'll go to Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari for, do you think it's the Supreme Court in the case which is Khimji Bhai Jadeja? Do you think we all will have to wait for that judgment to get a clarity on the issue of multiple FIRs?
Not really. I think, Tarun, if you look at the judgment of Supreme Court in Satinder Bhasin versus ED, and Satinder Bhasin versus UP Police, there are 2 orders passed by the Supreme Court. And I think that should give sufficient legal jurisprudential backing to any high court to at least do one thing, and that is deal with the problem that Samarjit said, where you have various police stations with the number of FIRs within a city. So at least that clubbing can be done by the High Court, or within the state, at least that clubbing can be done by the High Court. I think we will always have to go to Supreme Court, because Delhi High Court cannot have jurisdiction over the police in Madhya Pradesh, or or vice versa. The Madhya Pradesh High Court will not monitor a case which is filed in a special court in Delhi. So eventually people will have to go there. But I think the police could also, investigating agencies they have their manual by which they go about. The manual of theirs or their internal policies and guidelines could be framed where it should be said that, look, if 10 investors have already gone, then there is no need for you to get happy, trigger happy and register an FIR. You could say that is already pending there. And if charge sheet has already been filed, let's say in one case in Delhi, then really in relation to that project, so let's say Delhi police has done a detailed investigation and filed a good charge sheet. There is no need to waste the resources of our nation that Madhya Pradesh police also starts doing the same thing for the same project. It's really a repetition of everything. So I think we need some more guidance on this for sure. And I think Khimji Bhai Jadeja will clarify the law a lot. But really the problem that we will face, we will continue to live with when there are multi-states where the FIRs have happened. There is Justice Ansari rightly says, we need legislative intervention so that, there is some act of parliament which says that a person, if he's being prosecuted for a particular kind of an offense or the subject matter is similar, then he shall not be prosecuted in another state for that. And one which could come first in time could be the starting point, or one where the trial is called quite an advanced stage or investigation has culminated into a charge sheet. That jurisdiction could take precedence over the jurisdiction which has just about received the complaint. I think this will have a really good impact, not only for the victims who will ensure that they get speedy justice in one particular forum, in one particular city, but also it will be good for the business community, because if an honest businessman is harassed and he has to run pillar to post from one city to another city in the country, then he can't focus on his business. You see, these investors and builders and all these companies, their promoters, if they get into trouble, they have to focus on how to revive and return that money to the investor.
Not from police station.
Not spend time running around seeking bail and getting arrested from one police to another. And look, we all know in this forum that what kind of harassment any investigating authority, any part of the country can give by just a mere FIR being registered. So just like, it's not like, for example, if you look at money laundering, there is one central agency called the Enforcement Directorate, which does the money laundering, whether the money laundering has happened in Chhattisgarh or whether the money laundering has happened in Delhi or the money laundering has happened in Madhya Pradesh. There will be one ECIR in most cases, and there will be one prosecuting agency which will prosecute you in one particular forum. Even if that means that you've, let's say, laundered 1,000 crores in various parts of the country, it will all come to one particular place.
That's an interesting point.
That kind of a similarity has to be brought in, where there has to be a coordination between the police.
I'll take this to Samarjit Patnaik from Karanjawala and Company. Mr. Patnaik, what is the solution? Of course, we're waiting for the judgment, as Mr. Bhandari highlighted, but do you think there is the solution at the police station level for it? We say that the law enforcement agencies are centrally connected via CCTNS.
I thought probably I'll not refer to it, but interestingly, what I feel and I think is, why can't we do that? I mean, there was a reason why police stations were connected through the CCTNS, and if we can go give a fingerprint of an accused, a photograph or sketch of an accused, and look for similar offenses where all he has got other FIRs registered against him, etc. Why can't we develop the existing system and also try and see, say for example, today I go to a police station in Lajpat Nagar in Delhi, and all they have to do is to put in the catchwords. If it's against a builder, against a personality, against someone, they have to put in the catchword, see if at any other police station, from any other police station, it pops up as to if anything else is registered. So that could act as checks and balances, and that could be the starting point.
I'll take your point to Justice Ansari. One final comment from you, sir. Do you think the centralized system where, you can see complaints filed all over the country, that could be used as a tool, that at the police station level itself, you can't register multiple FIRs?
That can be possible only when there is one investigating agency. When there are several police stations and several investigating officers, then you can't apply the same principle. That is why let us wait for the judgment of the Supreme Court, but ultimately it will be for the legislature to intervene and set the law in motion correctly.
Okay. So I think the sum and subtext is Samarjit Patnaik from Karanjawala and company pointed out CCTNS could be used. Abhimanyu Bhandari said legislative intervention or Khimji Bhai judgment that he's saying that would clarify the law. Justice Ansari concurred with the same. I think we'll have to take this issue up again after the judgment in Khimji Bhai Jadeja, which we really don't know when it will be delivered. Mr. Bhandari will have an idea. But whenever it comes is when we have to take this up, because I think time and again, we've seen that eminent personalities are being troubled by this. And as also Mr. Bhandari highlighted, the businessmen can also, rather than focusing on reviving the company, may end up going to various cities and appearing before the police while the problem remains unsolved. Thank you. Thank you so much, Justice Ansari. Thank you, Mr. Bhandari. Thank you, Mr. Samarjit Patnaik, for joining in and sharing time and sharing all these opinions with us. Thank you, viewers, for joining in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.